when you saw this happening, are you looking at this as like, oh, they're just trying out different things, or are you thinking what I'm seeing, and also thinking that this could be a message sent to someone like Bradley Beal because he does have a no trade clause, one of the only players. Not many players get those, but he is one of them. Do you think this is maybe a message from the organization being like, hey man, we're going to move you to the bench unless like you got to let us trade you or something like that. If you don't let us trade you, you're staying on the bench and your role is getting minimalized.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't really see what else it could be. I mean, I
There's
think
no reason. There's no reason a player like that should be coming off the bench
nah, I mean,
unless there's some backstage politics. Like there's no reason.
it's clear to me and you have, as we've agreed in the past, that Bradley Beal is an odd man out in this big three. That
Absolutely.
this was never a person I felt like they should have brought to Phoenix. But Matt Ishbia buys the team and he comes in. It's like, I need another big name to put alongside Devin Booker. You
A
get Kevin
person
Durant.
that doesn't know how to put a team together.
Not at all. Not
No.
at all. Which doesn't make any sense. And now I think they're starting to see it. Wow, maybe Frank Vogel last year wasn't the issue. And then Mike Budenholzer gets here, and he's an offensive genius compared to Frank Vogel being on the defensive side.
And they're the 12th seed.
And they're the 12th
And
seed.
they're struggling, yeah.
They're struggling. Kevin Durant missed out on the first few games with an injury. So I kind of thought whenever he got back, maybe whatever glaring issues they had could have been erased by the greatness of, the Slim Reaper. But hasn't been the case. Like you mentioned, 1-7 in these last 8 games for him. But I think the move is necessary, not even just to send a message, but to kind of inject some different juice. Because maybe Bradley Beal coming off the bench could be something that benefits him more. We see this out of aging players whenever they fall out their prime. They move to the bench, and it's kind of like, wow, I get to kind of run this second unit and do things the way I want to do it and be the best player on the court whenever I get off the bench, just like how we saw Russell Westbrook do it whenever he went to the Clippers and kind of re-energize himself, found a role with Denver now, and now he's back in the starting lineup over there. But it's definitely, back to your point, though, it's definitely a message that, Bradley, you're going to be our sixth man. If you don't like it, demand a trade.
Yeah, and they'll fulfill it probably.
More than likely.
I'm looking like he's averaging close to 18 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, shooting 48% from the field and 39% from three. Obviously we know what he's capable of doing. He's a former 30-point per game scorer, but it's not like he's putting up terrible numbers. It's not like he's struggling from the field. It's not like anything like that. He's not. I'm not saying he's a defensive liability, but he's not the best defender in the world. But you trade for a position, a player that you don't need. You already have Devin Booker. And Bradley Beal has shown signs of being able to, be the floor general, have the ball in his hands and stuff. But that's also Devin Booker. And that's how, as Devin Booker is maturing and as he's getting better every year, he's leading the team with 6.5 assists a game. That should be Devin Booker's role, being the floor general. At least at that point, they got Tyus Jones to relieve it. But
just a playmaking scorer.
That's it. And you didn't need to get Bradley. You should have kept everything that you had for that you sent off for Beal. Get a guy like Tyus Jones that solves the floor general issue. Then you go after a need. I mean, Nurkic isn't the worst starting center in the league, but I'll tell you what, they should look to get whether it's a wing or another big man, because a guard isn't what they need. Any other position is more needed for Phoenix. And it's unfortunate, but Bradley Beal, just from the beginning, I mean, you said it, I don't think he was ever it was never going to be his team ever. He was never going to be a focal point in this team. It was always the Booker and KD show, and then Bradley Beal tagged along.
Yeah, no, that's the whole point. I understand wanting, I talked about this last year too, just wanting to get microwavable success, to make it happen. This has been my slogan when it comes down to super teams as of late, especially when they're not homegrown like a Boston or like an OKC. What we're seeing, it's very much forced, and they're trying to re-inject this super team madness back into the NBA by getting Bradley Beal and put him alongside Book and KD, and we're probably going to win a championship.
Yeah.
They have no depth. That was a problem last year.
That was the biggest issue with getting Beal and doing all this, is you're gutting your bench and your depth. And that's one of the biggest we turned into only a few years ago. The league turned into we went from super teams to duos, right? You started seeing the Kawhi, Paul George got together, LeBron, AD. You can say Jalen, Jason. I know they're homegrown, but that. And now they're like, oh, and again, this owner, this GM that is a fantasy, that lives in a fantasy world, that plays 2K My GM and thinks that it all works. The bigger name
My
players you have on
team.
your team, the better it goes. Goes, oh, we're in that, like, that's the era we're in. Let me get a third guy. And since we have a third star, that means we're like head and shoulders above everyone else.
That's not how you
You make
typically do it.
sacrifice. It's not, first of all, it's not how the real world, that's not how the real world works. That's not how the NBA works nowadays. It can, but not always. You make sacrifices by going after a third star. Like the Lakers, if they did go after a third star, let's say they go after Trae Young, you would have to gut a lot of your team. And that would honestly could hurt you more than help you by getting Trae Young. So you make those sacrifices. And in this case, they took a risk. Hey, I give him a credit. He has a lot of balls to do what he did, but it didn't work out. And now it's biting them in the ass.
Absolutely, man. Like I really don't have anything else to add. It's just it's fool's gold to think that you can just buy everything you want. Like that's not how the NBA works. It's all about the other guys, and we see it time and time again. And Phoenix has a lot of soul searching to do.
Do you think this is going to lead to a trade, or do you think this is just see they're going to test things out and then ride out the rest of the season?
Nah, I think it leads to a trade. It's January 6th at the time of us recording this. We're about a month away from the trade deadline to where I could realistically see, and we got to monitor the next topic we're going to get to with a certain player that we'll talk about, but also other teams could be shopping their assets. Maybe the Chicago Bulls become a target because you bench Nurkic. Maybe you want Vucevic. Maybe that makes more sense for what you guys have going on. I think Bradley Beal is obviously going to have to sign off. He's going to have a list of teams. I'd imagine
they can't send him on like a contract dump or nothing like that. He ain't going to go to a Detroit or Chicago, that's for sure.
He's going to want to go somewhere that makes sense for him to win. Where that is, not quite sure. I don't know what the market looks like on Bradley Beal if anybody wants to go test those waters, but either way, I think Beal's out before the deadline.
I'd be curious if his priority is winning more than just having a role similar to what he had back in Washington.
That's true.
He's 31. He's not old. He technically still is in his prime on the later years, but he still is in his prime. I'm not saying, obviously, you make the NBA, you want to win. But I think for him, like, if they present him with, I don't know, I can't think of a team at the top of my head, but if they present him with a team like, hey, this is like a play-in team. You could make the playoffs, but you are going to be the number one. And, like, it's up to you if you're going to lead the team, whatever. I'm Bradley Beal. I'm like, I'm not mad at that. I think I'm okay with that. But yeah, I agree with you. You don't make this move unless your intention is to trade someone or piss off the player, so they request the trade. So that organization's is a fucking God bless them. Stay out west. Stay further away from us. They can't be further away.
Maybe it should be said too, in Bradley Beal's defense, that maybe he embraces a 6-man role. He is a pro. He is a guy. He is a professional scorer, like you mentioned, a former 30-point scorer. Maybe off the bench would be perfect, so he doesn't have to share the floor with 2 other megastars. It could just be the Bradley Beal show. Whenever I run
2 of the last 5 games he's had 30 points and 25. So I mean, he can still go. Like I said, he's not putting up bad numbers this year. Maybe it is just a change of whether you're in the starting lineup or you're the 6th man. Maybe that is the spark. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But
it's an
very
ego
interesting
thing.
move.
It's an ego thing. Let's see how Bill reacts. Right. I'll retract everything I just said, everything we said, if he reacts positively.
So what's going to happen, Jerry, is a week from now, January 13th, we're either going to be talking about how the Phoenix Suns have won 3 straight games. It seems things are picking up, or we're going to be like, well, they lost 3 in a row. Bradley Beal has voiced his displeasure, and this is where we're going. So
TBD.
I bet one of those 2 things will happen, but we'll see.